Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, alscoop.com's podcast. I'm John DiCarlo, joined by Kyle Gauss, Sam Newman. Sam Cohn is off this week. This is season 6, episode 34, the Charles Barkley episode. I know what other 34s we've got. Anything come to mind?
Playground legend.
Playground legend?
A playground legend of Philadelphia wore 34.
Playground legend.
Think back to who Jeff Collins used to say that about.
Playground legend.
Tylee Rayner.
Oh, yes. You threw me off. I was thinking of an actual basketball player, but yeah, and he called Tylee Rayner playground legend. Yes,
he was just, that was like one of his like go-to quotes. Like you walk around people like you go to random schools and they're asking about Tylee Rayner. I'm like, okay. Jahad Thomas before he switched numbers. 34.
Yep. Jahad Thomas. Nolan Ryan wore 34 for the Rangers, right?
I believe so.
Yes. Noah Syndergaard wears 34. That's what I have.
He might be the reason that Game of Thrones got crappy. Like Game of Thrones jumped the shark after Noah Syndergaard was on it. Like, thank you, Noah.
It's an interesting take, Kyle.
Now you got karma with the James Crown.
Who am I to argue that? We've got some cool stuff for you guys this week. Really excited to bring you this interview a little while with Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbery, 2 former Temple teammates, 2 former Temple standouts. Of course, Mardy was the program's last first-round pick in 2006 by the New York Knicks. He played in the NBA, played overseas. Dustin had a long career overseas as well. We talked to those guys this week because the cool thing is that they are graduating this week after all this time, earning their Temple degrees, both in African-American studies. So, again, excited to bring you that interview, some mailbag questions from listeners and readers, some football stuff as well. And, before we get to this Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbery interview, we've got another college graduate, soon to be college graduate on the podcast here, our own Sam Newman, who's got the graduation news and he's got some exciting personal news as well. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Yeah, no, I'm graduating, I guess, whenever you listen to this. We're recording on a Wednesday, so tomorrow, if you're listening to Thursday, today, I'm graduating. Exciting stuff. Maybe Sam will insert like a round of applause or something when he's recording.
Hooting and hollering.
Yes.
It's wild. Part of me never thought I'd make it here, but I did.
I'm disappointed you didn't follow in my footsteps of not graduating during May.
No.
Having to do the summer stuff to graduate. Look at you, on time.
I'm usually on time. I guess I'm on time, not cough on time here. So, but yeah, I got some good news. Some bittersweet news because I hate to be leaving, the Owl Scoop family, because it is Owl Scoopers, everybody. That is fact. We should get that trademarked. I don't know if I can say we for only a couple weeks longer. But I guess once Owl Scoop, always Owl Scoop.
Yes,
right?
you never leave the Owl Scoop family.
I
hate to make that sound like the mob, but
I've elected to accept a position, entry level maybe, with Clemson Insider. So I'll be covering pretty much doing what I'm doing for Owl Scoop, but Clemson, and it's exciting. Going back down south, so that's it's exciting. I've never lived in South Carolina before. We're in South Charlotte, so we're like 10 minutes from the border, and like that's comfortable. But I can't say that I've ever imagined that I would live in South Carolina. So here we go. But I start June 1st. I'm gonna commute to start stuff off. That Dabo has this couple camps to start the summer off, and in June, and then I'll probably move down there at August. And fortunately, Charlotte is an ACC hub, so I can sleep in my own bed when Clemson plays Georgia. I think as their home as a season opener. I believe there's some media events in July for the ACC, and then I just figured this out, but I think Temple is playing with Clemson in the Charleston Classic this year. So, maybe we can have an Owl Scoop family reunion there. But
Or maybe you can freelance for us so we don't have to go to Charleston.
I'm excited.
Maybe that's what
I'm excited for you, buddy.
awesome.
You've been an invaluable part of the staff, and we'll miss you, but still be part of our group chat. And it couldn't have done all the things we've done the past couple of years without you, and really appreciate it. Kyle, I told Sam that I hope he ends up in some way, shape, or form as an extra somehow on Southern Charm and becomes a reality TV star on the side. I don't think
I've never seen Southern Charm.
No, it's a. My wife watches it. I can't say I watch it.
Oh, is this the chick that was sleeping with Jay Cutler?
I believe so. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, Madison LaCroix. Okay. All right, I'm aboard.
Is she somehow tacitly involved with the A-Rod rumors too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I think she came out and said, like, I did not have sexual relationships with Alex Rodriguez.
What a podcast.
You know what the biggest difference?
Everything.
You know what the biggest difference between your current job and your job a month from now is going to be, Sam?
What's that?
So you're really big on, like, when we have you talk to a recruit, ignore Jordan crying, sorry. You'll text us like, oh, I think Temple's ain't good with blah, blah, blah. Now Clemson's in good with everybody. Yeah. Like you're just going to have to figure out, like, does Clemson actually want this kid?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have Sam around for a few more weeks. And again, I can't thank you enough. And it's been fun to watch your career grow from Temple News and now.
Yeah.
So
been my pleasure. I mean, I think it's almost been 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
You're definitely one of the Sams that have worked for Al Scoop. Arguably first, second, and maybe third. I don't know, but you've done a very good job for us, Sam.
Thanks, Kyle.
Again,
we're not new Sam.
Well, yeah, it's weird.
Are you going to replace me with another Sam? Is that the goal here?
Could.
Am I going to, like, do we still call Boston Sam when there's no Carolina Sam?
I don't know. We'll have to see what time shows us there. I don't know.
Yeah, an ad for Sam's.
Yeah, seriously. If you are a Sam and you are interested in covering recruiting, email John DeCarlo. Please don't DM me.
You see another Sam, and if we're still doing this on Zoom, we look at him. You're not Carolina Sam.
I'm going to have him do a filter. Where's Carolina Sam's face?
Just have a Carolina Sam mask.
He'll have the Ferris Bueller poster behind him. That's a requirement.
Yes.
And the Messi poster.
Guy that covers the Jets, angry Mets fan, all those things, all those prerequisites. But we're not. Yeah, we got him for a couple more weeks. And again, he never fully leaves the Al Scoop family. So yeah, just wanted to pay tribute to Sam there. Great, he's graduating. Again, love you, buddy. Thanks for everything you've done for us. So from one college graduate to not soon to be college graduate to two more here that we're going to talk to. Like I said, Dustin Salisbury and Mardy Collins. Again, you guys know them as two of Temple's all-time leading scorers, guys that were up there and terrific guards for the program. But again, we're talking to them this week. Cool thing is, again, they've been close friends. They're graduating this week, earning their degrees in African-American studies. And now we're going to turn this over to the interview we had with them. And again, they're talking about why they came back to get their degrees, talked about playing for John Chaney. In Dustin's case, he got to play for John Chaney and Fran Dunphy. And they're going to talk about their sons too. We know that Temple fans are, of course, interested and always interested in recruiting. And now they're following the careers of Madden Collins and DeMahj Salisbury. So we'll have all that more for you here. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbury. All right, so joining us on the Scoop this week, we're very fortunate to have two former Temple stars, Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbury. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. There's a lot of cool stuff to get into today. You guys could tell stories for days, I'm sure. But one of the main reasons why we're talking to you guys today, one of the cool things is that you guys are getting your Temple degrees this week. So congratulations. It's you get them. Was it tomorrow or Friday you're getting them? Friday. Both of you guys are getting your commencement's Friday for both of you?
Yes. Yeah.
So Dustin, you're getting your degree in African-American studies. Mardy, what about you?
Same.
So same. Well, I mean, simple question, but what does this mean to you guys after all this time? You guys played together. You guys have remained friends, and now to get your degrees now together. What does this mean to you guys?
I mean, it's exciting for me. I mean, at the 15 years later, and to finally be able to get the degree is definitely exciting for me. I didn't realize it. I guess when you're 19, 21 years old and you about to go to the NBA, you kind of don't. It really doesn't really mean too much. But going through life experiences and having kids now, things like that, it kind of makes it a little more special. My sons always joke with me, saying don't let them graduate college before I do. So that was something I had to try to hone in and get it done.
Dustin, what about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing Marty said. It's very special. Wish I would have did it a long time ago, but it's better late than never. And I don't know, I'm really excited about it. Like Marty said, you're playing basketball, trying to make it to the next level. As a kid, you're not really thinking, it was the wrong way of thinking at that time, but back on track now, and I think it came at the right time, just putting in a lot of hard work and dedication into these classes to get it done. And it's a great example for my sons.
Mm-hmm. When you guys, I don't know if it was a different situation for each of you, but when you guys were done playing, Marty, you obviously were done after 2006, got drafted by the Knicks in the first round. And Dustin, you were done a year later. Both you guys went on to pro careers. At the time, how far off were you guys from graduating? Was it several classes? Was it just were you a few credits away? What was it like?
I was nine classes away.
Okay.
So I was pretty close. And I if I would have finished the semester off, my senior semester off, it would have been even closer. But going through the combine workouts and all that stuff, I just stopped going. I ended and stopped going to class. So ended up being 9 classes. So I started back up. What was that? January last year. So I did 3 classes the spring semester of 2020. I did 1 each summer session, and then 1 in the fall last year, and then I did my last 2. So I was 9 classes away. Wasn't too far.
How about for you, Dustin?
I needed 5, and it was the same thing what Marty said. Going to the combine and workouts, I just wasn't around for class, and at that time it was just like you were trying to accomplish something, but I just needed 5, so I took 1 at Hack in 2007. Or excuse me, 2017, and then I was talking to Marty earlier. I think this was last year when he started taking his classes again. And that kind of is what got me into it. I said, I'll shit up. And then I took 2 classes last semester, and then these 2 classes this semester. And it's here now.
Real quick before I turn it over to Kyle here, what is it like being back in school after all that time off? Is it weird? What's it like?
The toughest thing ever. After you go so long without doing any schoolwork and handing in assignments and then I never had classes online. We always had classes on campus where we went and did our work. Now being online, having to learn how to use the TU portal and submit your assignments on the canvas, and just locking in and doing the schoolwork. That was the hardest part. Like taking so much time off. I wouldn't recommend anybody to take that much time off in between school because that was like the toughest part this last year and a half. Like really just trying to hone back in and get the readings done. Especially when you're grown, you got real life things going on. Kids and bills, all types of things going on. You had to kind of like block that out and try to finish the work.
Mm-hmm. Same kind of thing for you, Dustin? Was it weird?
Yeah, same exact thing. It was trying to learn how to submit assignments, and I think once I got through that part, it was okay. But just the African classes, they're pretty tough. They're very, very intense, and you really got to concentrate on those classes. So they was pretty difficult. But like I said, we both got through it. It's over now, and I'm happy.
Marty, like you said, I mean, it's a big stretch between when you started to when you actually ended. I'm wondering if there was somebody, whether it was a coach or a faculty member or a teacher, that kind of comes to mind when you think that they really went above and beyond, that kept you on the right track and helped you finally get your degree.
Well, you talking about during this time now?
Either
or
time,
before?
whether it was back when you were first at Temple or the last couple of years.
Well, before we had some academic advisors. Carla Super, she was really crucial in helping us out, and we also had Miss Karen. She worked in a Leah course, and she kind of tutored us and helped us a lot with a lot of different assignments. So she was very important to it, and then once we started back then, it was two people that kind of Dwayne Killings. He was one of the ones 4 years ago, telling me I should try to start back up. And then he connected me with Justin Miller, and then me and Justin talked maybe 3-4 years ago, and he told me it was a problem because guys would start classes back up and wouldn't finish, and that was hurting the program. So I didn't want to commit to it until I knew I was absolutely ready. And then last year, me and Justin had that conversation, and I just kind of all right, it's time for me to lock in and really get it done.
I guess as a quick follow-up to that, because you brought him up and it's topical. Have you had the opportunity to talk to DK since he got the head coaching job at Albany?
Yeah, I talked to him on a regular basis. He's, like I said, he's one of the people, even though I didn't play under their coaching staff, when I was coming around all the summers, he was one of the ones I would always talk to. He always had a liking for my youngest son, and so we would always talk. And then through there, we, like I said, he was trying to get me back into school. So we always talk. I would say every other month, every month.
Hey guys, so you hear so much about John Chaney's early morning practices, and we were always told the reason he did that was so that you got practice out of the way and didn't miss any class time. What was he like with you guys when it came to prioritizing just academics, and how much did he stay on you two about that?
He all of the coaches was on us about the academics because obviously without passing your classes, so the eligibility thing was very was talked about a lot, and we were set up with tutors like Mardy said. With Carla, we had a guy named Walt. Walt was our the study hall guy, and they would always just help us out whatever we needed. And coach was very high on the education portion because you can't play basketball forever, but your education lasts forever.
And I mean, something else we talked about, it's been a little bit more than 3 months since Coach Chaney passed. Dustin, this was something we talked about for a story I wrote back in February, and I wanted to ask you both about this. A lot of guys might look back at their college careers and have fond feelings for their coaches. You guys played for a legend, I mean, a Hall of Famer, and he wasn't just a guy who won games. He was a larger than life figure when it came to making an impact on and off the court. I think we can safely say that he was truly unique, different from everyone else, and we'll never see anyone quite like him again. When you look back now, 3 months later, do you sit back and say, I got to play for a true legend? What's it like kind of just to process that all 3 months later?
Go ahead, Mardy.
For me, I mean, it was every time I kind of think about Coach every day, and every time I think about it, it kind of just, it always brings back all the memories, Like I said, me and my teammates, me and Dustin, we sit back, and I think me and Dustin just had a real discussion maybe 3 weeks ago about Coach, about sit back and think about all the things he was with and what he was trying to get out of us on the basketball court, man. It's like, you think about it now as a grown man, it's like you really understand what he was trying to do. And it teaches more than just about basketball, but life lessons as well. And like I said, we have stories for days where we can always hold on to those stories and those memories of him, even now that he's gone.
Dustin, how about for you?
Yeah, just this passing, and then when you're watching a lot of the news outlets and a lot of the old videos, I seen myself in a lot of them. So it was just crazy. And you really realize I always knew he was a legend, but just seeing that, and I always knew he had an impact, but just seeing it in the light on ESPN and all the people that talked to him, it really brought it to a bigger light for me. Just knowing that, I really played for a legendary coach, one of a kind coach. There'll never be another John Chaney. And like Mardy said, we talked about all of the things that, sometimes was, at a young age for myself in particular, was hard to understand, but leaving college and turning into the professional world, you really realize that, he always had your back, regardless of how he talked to you. He wouldn't let nobody else talk to you like that, and that's the true meaning of somebody who was there for you and always in our corner.
Another life milestone for you guys is that your sons are now growing up and they're starting to get recruiting attention. They're good basketball players in their own right. But before we get to them as basketball players and their futures, I just wanted to give you guys the opportunities to talk about your sons and what they're like. Dustin, we'll start with you. I mean, I've never met, I met DeMahj one time on campus, but I feel like I've seen him grow up on social media, and it makes me feel old. Mardy, kind of the same thing for your son too. Dustin, tell us about DeMahj and just your family and what it's like just having that piece of life come together for you.
For me, dealing with him is so easy because he loves what he's doing, and he's focused in on school and basketball. I don't have to ask him to do anything when it comes to academics or working out or anything. And his skill set is he has an amazing skill set. And me, I'm just home giving him the pro pointers and just kind of, trying to work out the little things, his little flaws and things like that. But, he's just really turning the corner right now. He's playing for Philly Pride. He received his first Division I offer the other day. Some more should be coming in. So it's just an amazing time. And it makes me not even really miss playing basketball at all because it's just, watching him play. And the process that he's going through is just amazing. And, I have another son too that's good, and he's going to be going through the process. So it makes it a lot easier just to kind of, transition into this point of life.
Mardy, what about Madden again? Like, what's he like? Not just as a basketball player, but just off the court.
Matt's cool, man. Like he's a lot different than me. Like I was really to myself and kind of quiet. Really wasn't social. Like only the people that were close to me, my teammates and friends and my family members knew the real me. Like to everybody else, I was kind of closed off. Matt is a little different. Like man, he's real social. Like I see him at like a family function. He's dancing. He's the life of the party. So, and then with school wise, like it's kind of scary sometimes because it's kind of effortless. And I want him to be challenged more in school, but he's like one of the top academic people in his class. So I love that part of it. And then the basketball, I don't know, it's just he's been at it since a kid. Since buying the little hoops in the house, and he's always did a good job of imitating other players. And I like at the beginning, I really didn't work with him. He just picked up a lot of things from just YouTube and watching basketball games. So. Over the years, he's growing more fond of it, and he's putting in the work with his trainers and stuff like that. So I'm just like Dustin said, man, like we talked the other day and we was like, man, seeing our sons play and have success is more exciting than when we played. Like I get more excitement out of seeing, my sons play and do well than I did myself. So I just continue to, try to do anything I can do to help them get better. But just also continue to have fun with it. But more so than anything, I try to get not even just working on his game, but try to the mental things and the things he's going to deal with, as an athlete. I try to give them the game in that light rather than just, working on his skill, because a lot of guys can play, but it's also about keeping your confidence. It's learning how to maneuver through millions of other basketball players who's trying to accomplish the same thing you're trying to accomplish. So that's the kind of tips I try to give them.
Now, Dustin, with DeMahj, was there ever a time when, let me just kind of rephrase it. When you started off, when he was younger, was there ever a time when you kind of steered him towards basketball, or was it more just like, hey, this might not be something he loves, he has to figure it out on his own?
I mean, ever since like he was little, both my sons, they just always like had a basketball. Like it just was like, I don't know, second nature. I didn't like make them play. They just loved the game. You know what I mean? And ever since, I can remember, they both just love to play basketball. So, and then I didn't really start, giving out up until 8th grade, I let Maj just kind of do his thing. And then, because I wasn't around, so during the summers I would do little stuff, but we really started taking it serious his summer going into 9th grade. And then the progress just been, tremendous over these last 2 years. He's getting great opportunities, offers. So it's crazy right now.
Just how fulfilling is that, I guess, knowing that without having to kind of steer him in that direction, he still is trying to pursue just the same path that you went down.
Yeah, and he's doing it better than I did it. He's just much more focused and dialed in, like no distractions. Like, he has blinders on to everything else, and it's just basketball and books, and that's just what he's about. Always watching videos and things like that, and always trying to get better. Loves to work out. It's just the focus is there, and it's so easy for me to just do my job. And right now he's playing for Philly Pride, where they have a great system over there. The coaches are great, and like right now I don't have to. I still tell them little stuff, but they take great care of him. They're great guard coaches, and they're just giving him everything that he needs. So I'm just being a dad right now, where I don't really have to do too much, which is also a plus.
Now, Mardy, I guess same question with you. With you and his mom, Madden obviously might have had a bit of an inside track towards basketball, but was there ever a moment where you kind of pushed him in that direction, or did it just kind of come naturally to him?
No, it just came naturally. It just came naturally. I never did it, but I always was happy that it happened that way. But never stared. We just got the only thing I did, get the little basketball hoops for the house. Other than that, never did it. And the thing he did, like I said, he did it. He always looked at players and imitated. He's been doing that since he was little. I remember I was playing for the Clippers, and Marcus Camby. Marcus Camby has a weird, looking shot. Madden used to imitate that from 3 years old. He was imitating Marcus Camby. Like, I remember him being a huge Kobe fan as a kid, and I have a video I posted on Instagram where he's dribbling like he's posting up, and then he turns around and do a fadeaway. Like he just always did that. He just always picked the things up that way. So I never had to push him. I think I was just getting a little more serious, and I still want him to have fun with it, but it's just like now I'm like, yo, it's serious now. Like if you want to really take this serious and go to school and get the scholarship and hopefully play professional, then you need to start stepping it up even more. So I kind of got him now because he's at that age now, but naturally it just came. The same with Mason. He's 11, so I just kind of let Mason do his thing right now. He's so tall. He's 11, but he's almost the same height as Madden. So I kind of just let him still, because he's 11, just kind of let him do his thing because he's still kind of a baby in my eyes.
Was there a moment when you contemplated telling 3-year-old Madden that he's not allowed to imitate a UMass player?
It's crazy. I didn't even factor that in. I just used to see him do it, and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that he was like really imitating the shot exactly like Marcus Camby to be 3 years old. So it was just always funny to me.
Mardy, obviously Madden, he's a freshman this year. He's got a lot of time ahead, but if you were to look at him now, what's the early? Could you give the listeners an early scouting report on what he's like as a player? Because again, he just recently had a real good AAU tournament, and he got some attention from that. What's an early scouting report you could give on him as a player? How is he so far?
Smart, man. His IQ is really high, and I've always been a high IQ player, and so has his mom. So I'm kind of just thinking that just me had just been passed down, but high IQ. But also he's like real creative. He's a great ball handler, great 3-point shooter. And none of the things that he really excel at, like ball handling, and he's real deceptive with his moves. And he's a really way better shooter than I was. So then the two things, but that I think I look at him, the three things: IQ, his shooting ability, and his ability to create off the dribble. Are the three things, but like it's the one thing I'm just telling him he has to get stronger. I know he's 15. He's still going through puberty, but I'm kind of trying to get him to get stronger because right now he still has that thin frame, and he might be. I was a late bloomer for his height, so he still hasn't picked up me or Ari's height yet. About 5'8" now, so I'm hoping he gets that growth spurt and just put on some weight now. He's starting to eat a lot more now, so I'm hoping the weight will come.
Dustin, what about an early scouting report on DeMahj? He's a year ahead, year older, had a good season at La Academia, and I guess their first season, and also you're a coach there. We'll get into that too. What would you say if you were to give people an early scouting report on your son?
it's just his IQ for basketball is very high because he studies it. Very, very quick, explosive guard. Is very, very good on the defensive end. Loves the pass first. And gets to the basket well. Is a good mid-range shooter, but needs to work on consistency from behind the three-point line. But is getting a lot better over this summer at shooting the long three ball, but just becoming a more consistent shooter and learning how to lead the team. Just being more vocal. He's not really vocal, so he has to be a little bit more vocal if he's going to be a point guard. But overall, great kid, hard worker, and just getting better at every facet of the game.
Dustin, I'll ask you this first, and then Marty. I mean, as you watch both of your sons grow into good players and playing high school and the AAU circuit, and you watch that process now as parents, I mean, what's different now? It might be a simple question, but what's different?
Man, it's just one, you're not running around putting no pressure on your body. They're doing all of that. I'm seeing how fast these kids are now, and I'm like, it's going to take a lot for me to get out there and run with a 16, 17-year-old right now. So, but it's just a different feel. I was at the Pitt Jam Fest, I think 2 weeks ago, and DeMahj hit a game-winning shot against the New Jersey Scholars in overtime, and it was just, I don't know, it was a great feeling, better than any shot that I made at the buzzer or anything like that, because this is your kid doing it now, and you want the best for them, and it's just a whole different feeling just watching your kids go through the path of trying to make it to the highest level, and you being a parent, I know when Marty knows all of the business part about the game, so I just try to tell him to keep, have fun. Don't worry about, all this other stuff, other kids on Instagram doing this and that. Just have fun in high school. That's my most important piece of information that I give them. Have fun right now, because after this is when it becomes a business. But, as his parent and someone who's been in the game, try to keep him away from the BS of the basketball world. That's my main focus, that he could just focus in and have fun with the game.
Marty, what about for you? What's different now in your eyes?
As far as the game and kids playing in this era or something?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the game is just totally different from when we played. It's more three-point shooting. It's more about scoring. It's more about, creating positionless basketball now. So it's a lot different than when we played, because everybody was set to a position. That's the part I do like, because Madden, he's able to play, off the ball and point guard. So I like that. Before, you couldn't get away with that. You had to be this or be that. So I like the fact that it's changed in that ways. I think also, the social media presence, that has a big effect on kids. And like Dustin said, it's just like, I just try to tell Madden, like, have fun with it, man. Have fun with it and just work. Just work. It's working, because working, that's going to get to where you want to go. Like, just working hard every day. Because I remember last week, my son hits me, Madden hits me. He calls my phone and he's a little upset because he did well in the tournament. He was pretty much the MVP of the team that weekend in the tournament, but for some reason, they wrote up another kid. So I kind of had to tell him, like, don't worry, don't get caught up in that social media stuff. Like, I mean, you put the work in, you're going to get noticed. Like, don't worry about that stuff. That's just highlight clips. That's just for everybody to have fun and see you. But if you put the work in, it's going to come. So it's just like, that might be the biggest thing that Instagram, the social media presence, because everyone's getting critiqued and criticized and praised on there. And everybody's worried about likes and, you can't get caught up in it. I couldn't imagine playing in this era. Like, I know it's a lot tougher than when we played. But the only thing it was a damn newspaper write-up or something. So I know it's a lot tougher for the kids just during this generation.
Marty, I'll ask both you guys this question. Marty, I'll start with you first. You guys know, if you haven't already, you're going to start getting questions like, are you going to try to steer your kid toward Temple? And I'm sure it's probably a bunch of mixed feelings for you guys, because I don't know, like, I would imagine that both you guys are probably thinking, hey, you got to do what's best for you. But what is it like balancing out the feelings for your school, but also kind of maybe having to say to your son, like, I'll do what's best for you? Is that already kind of getting weird to think through that? Or do you kind of just put that off till you have to think about it?
Yeah, well, I'm at that stage yet. I'm still, Madden's 9th grade, Mason's 6th grade. So that's kind of more for Dustin. So for me, it's just, getting to the point where they're even getting looked at by Temple. So that's just get them to that point. But so when that point does come, it's like you said, it's not really mixed. It wouldn't be mixed emotions for me because I'm really not. It's just whatever best for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put any pressure on them and feel like they got to come to Temple, live in my footsteps. But if they did, I would love it. It's more so not just to come to Temple. It's more so they live in South Carolina now. They'll be back in the Philadelphia area where all my family is from, and my family get to see him play, and I get to see him, stuff like that. But it's not really. When time comes and that happens, it wouldn't be any pressure for me as far as that. I just want them to be happy.
Dustin, how about for you? DeMahj is a year ahead of where Madden is. He just picked up his first offer from Dwayne Killings. He got the offer from Albany. He's starting to get some attention. And what do you think that'll be like for you? Kind of like same question. Is there part of you that would love to see him follow in your footsteps, but the other part of you that has to say, hey, you got to do what's best for you? Is that starting to creep into your thought process? Or you kind of, like Marty said, kind of putting that off until you have to think about it?
It's part of my process now because he's actually getting the offers now.
Right.
But for him, I'm not. When it comes to that point, it would be totally up to him. Would I love to see him go to Temple? Yeah, but I also want him to be able to, have his own path and choose what school is best for him. So up until that point, it's kind of my job to make sure he's on the right AAU team and being coached the right way. And then when it's time to choose a college, I have to give him, the pros and cons of this team because his dream school is North Carolina. But, if you go to North Carolina and you don't play good, then there's going to be somebody else coming in after you. So there's all that stuff that I have to teach him. But for him, when the time comes where you have to choose a school, I want him to be able to just pick the best school where he feels most comfortable with. But obviously Temple, I would love to see him go there. That would be nice. But we still got 2 more years and just waiting for the best situation for him when that time comes.
Listen, John talked about it a little bit, but you're an assistant coach now at La Academia. It's a new charter school. How did that opportunity come together, and what's it like, being a high school coach now and coaching your son?
The opportunity came that school was there for over 20 years, and they never had a sports program. So my friend Jerry Johnson, he had stopped playing basketball, and it was some lady that works at one of the community centers around here that's connected with the school who came to him and said the school wants to start a program. They're looking for somebody. So he went and interviewed for the job. He got the AD job there, and they gave him the head coaching job. And I was home at that time. It was after my last season in Tunisia, and I was waiting around for another deal, and I just started helping them. And then that's when we brought my son over, and I seen my son's progress was so good. And then COVID hit, and it was hard to go back and get a basketball job. So that's kind of how I just stopped playing, kind of really because of COVID. But then just coaching and being able to be hands-on with my son after missing so much time from being overseas, it was hard for me to even think about going back and playing anywhere. So that's how the opportunity came for me. And it was great. We had a great season last year, 1 game away from the finals. He had a good year, ended up being 13 All-State. So it was a great opportunity.
Marty, earlier this month, Madden had a good AAU tournament, and Don Staley chimed in on Twitter and said that's her godson. So in addition to him having you and Ari as role models, it sounds like he has Don Staley as one too. What kind of influences has she had on his life?
She has a great one from day one. I mean, she's been his godmother. She's been born, and she's always, she spoils him. She spoils him and Mason, and she's always talking to him and letting him know when he needs to do better as well too. So that's a good thing. She's just being there, just doing anything to help him, and give him a little guidance. So it's been great. Her and then anytime she says something, so the whole South Carolina is going to see it. So I was just fortunate that she was able to retweet that just to give him a little recognition.
For each of you guys, I mean, I guess Marty, I'll start with first. For each of you guys, what was your most memorable moment as a player at Temple, and your most memorable moment just professionally?
Oh, most memorable moment at Temple had to be my freshman year when I hit a big 3 against Xavier, or I got to switch on David West. And it was the semifinals of the Atlantic 10 tournament. And we needed to get to the, win Atlantic 10 to get to the NCAA tournament. And David West switched out on me, and I hit a big three, to put us up, gave us the lead and get us the win and get us to the finals against Dayton. So that might have been my best moment, because during the A-10 banquet, he was David West. I mean, he was talking so cocky and arrogant about how they're going to win the tournament and nobody has a chance. So for me to get in that moment as a freshman was probably my best moment at Temple. Professionally, it just was getting drafted, man. As a kid, that's something that, you always look forward to, trying to get drafted in the NBA. So for me, that moment alone, no matter what happened after it, was enough for me, man. I just love the moment. I wish that's one of the regrets I have. I wish I still would have just went to the draft. But me being so nervous of not knowing where I was going to go, I just stayed home and watched it with family. But hearing my name called by David Stern was just like a dream come true. So, probably my best moment.
Dustin, what about for you? What was your most memorable moment as a player at Temple, and then your most memorable moment professionally?
I say Temple was probably my sophomore year when we went down to Duke and played against Duke. And I say that because, as a kid, you always, Duke was always on TV. You watch Coach K, and then to be down there, to actually play against them. I just remember before the jump ball, I'm looking around. Coach K's on the sideline, and at the time, JJ Redick was one of the top players in all of college basketball. Might have been the face of college basketball. So you're on the court with people like that. But once the ball went up, it just was basketball after that. And then, so I'll say that probably that game. We lost the game, but it was a good game. And then professionally was just going through, that whole NBA process. I wasn't drafted, but I went through the whole process of both NBA camps, all the workouts, summer league. That was great. And then I'll probably say that. And then, my professional career ended while I was able to win 3 consecutive championships over in Tunisia. We run a tournament out in Dubai, which was great. So probably those moments.
Dustin, I want to ask you this question before we get to the mailbag questions. You had the opportunity to play for John Chaney and Fran Dunphy, so you were a part of both eras. I thought about this the other day. There's probably no way you would remember this. I remember seeing you on Cecil B. Moore Avenue one day, and I think it was probably Chaney's last year, and you were eating a breakfast sandwich right before practice. And I said, aren't you worried about cramping up or something like that? And you told me you're of the impression that you think we're going to be running right away. He might be talking to us for an hour before we do anything. So I've got time to digest. This sandwich has time to digest. I'm going to be fine. And then I imagine Dump style was a little bit more different in practice, but you played for both guys. So it was the end of the John Chaney era, the beginning of the Fran Dunphy era at Temple. What was that like for you, just to compare and contrast the style? Some people say, hey, they're more alike than you'd think. How did you see it?
Well, the biggest thing for me was the practice times. Practicing at 6 versus 2 or 3. The 2 or 3 time was definitely better for me. Because I think that was part of a lot of the players' problems. We were getting up so early, and then we'd practice, and then if we had a class we finished the practice around 8, take a shower. If we had if you had an 8:40, most likely you would go. But if you had a 9:40 or a 10:30, you will go back and lay down. And then next thing you had to be very disciplined. But next thing you know, you might wake up, the class is done, and it's I ain't worried about it. But I say definitely the times was the biggest difference for me. And obviously their coaching style was different. Playing for Coach Dunphy, we were allowed to. We ran a little bit more, which was more of my style. But both were great because I learned a lot from Coach Chaney and Coach Dunphy as well. Just two different guys, but both great coaches that helped me out a lot.
Just a quick follow-up. When Dump takes over, I mean, there's a lot of pressure there. He's taking over for a legend. And he had that one. It was the one season where you were there where you guys didn't get to the tournament, and right after that, boom, 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances. how did he approach getting to know you guys and taking over for Chaney? Because he always talked about how great a responsibility that was. He wasn't going to take that job if he didn't have coach's blessing. How did he approach like getting to know you guys and making you feel comfortable?
He just was a great communicator, and he didn't come in. I mean, obviously he's the head coach, but he didn't come in demanding this, demanding that. He allowed us to be ourselves, and he was great for me. They came in when they came in my senior year. I lost 25 pounds, and I was able to get my explosiveness back under him. He just was a great guy, and it's easy to respect someone when they have respect for you. They came to you. The assistant coaches were great too, especially Matt Langle. He helped me out a lot. The whole coaching staff was great. Just the way that they communicated. They didn't come in and say, we're the bosses now. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that. They kind of just eased their way in, and that's why I still have respect for all of them. I actually just talked to Coach Dunphy today, and I talked to Coach Langle every now and then. DK was around, and their whole staff was just great, and they're great guys. And like I said, they just didn't come in and try to say, well, we're changing this program, this and that. And it was a rebuilding year, and that's how they treated it. So they did a very good job of coming in and taking over, though.
Here are a few of the mailbag questions that we got from readers and listeners. The first one comes from Varun Kumar. He actually writes some stuff for us from time to time for Al Scoop. The question he has for both you guys is, with how much education meant to John Chaney, did he know you guys were close to graduating before he passed? Was that something that you guys talked about with Coach?
Nah, I didn't get a chance to. And that's something that hurts because I just wish that he was able to see this. Like, I mean, I know he'd be so proud of us that we came back and able to do it because I've seen him when guys like Rick Brunkson and Aaron, everybody came back and graduated, how excited he was when they did it. So that was one of the main things I was looking forward to once I graduated, being able to have that phone conversation and talk to Coach and say I finally did it. So it's a little, a little sad that I'm not able to have that conversation to do that. And I know he's proud of us.
Dustin, how about you? Did you guys ever talk about that? Did he know you were close to graduating?
Yeah, I called him before his passing. I probably talked to him maybe 2 or 3 months before that. Mm-hmm. And I let him know that's what I, was doing, that, I was going to graduate soon. And, his conversation was good. He understood me. And I like I said, I don't know. I just felt one day I should call him. And I called him over the years, but I just, the 2 or 3 months before he passed, I just was riding. I seen Johnny Miller that day. So I was talking to Johnny Miller.
That's a name. That's a name from the past. Another number 3, right?
Yeah. So me and Johnny were talking about him, and then I just called him that day and let him know what I was up to. Let him know about my son. Was asking him about him. So we had a good conversation. So he did know that's what I was doing. So I'm glad I did make the call.
Next question comes from, this is a screen name on the message boards from Delaware Al. This one's from Mardy. Mardy, how hard was it to transition from a post player in high school at Simon Gratz to a point guard under John Chaney?
It was the toughest thing I ever had to do in my life. I tell my son that all the time. Like, it's the toughest thing I have ever had to do because, like you said, high school I played the post, but like that was for my high school team. But during AAU and other recreation leagues, I played in the wing. I was always a wing, maybe a 3 or 2, and I was scoring more. So when I got there in Temple, he's trying to make me a point guard. It was a tough adjustment, like, because I always was trying to score first and set people up last. So with Coach, playing Coach for point guard, he expected excellence from his point guard. So every day it was like, me and Dustin had an argument a month ago about how much he used to get cussed out. And it was a lot more. But I used to tell him, like, he had me so confused at some moments where I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know I needed to set people up, get people involved on the score. When should I do it? And then my sophomore year started to click for me. But I tell him, like, I tell my son now, because my son Madden's real aggressive. And he plays point guard too. So it's like, that's the part he's going to learn, but it's going to come with just playing, come with experience, learning how to play point guard, when to shoot, when to set your teammates up, and do that. So it was by far the toughest thing I had to do in my life.
Next question. The screen name is Berkshire Al. He says, congratulations to both of you on completing your Temple degrees. Any special reason to come back and do this? Is it just a coincidence that you both came back at the same time?
Like I said, Mardy, for me, it was probably COVID, where, I found myself I had to do something. I wanted to be productive during that time. And I knew Mardy was doing it. When I talked to him, I said, this is something that I just need to get done. So I think COVID shouldn't have been the reason. It should have been, me wanting to get it done. But I think it happened for a reason. And I'm glad, I'm glad it did, because I was productive during that time. And I'm just happy that.
Next question. There are a couple here from the screen name is SAH0770. A few questions for you guys. Always love hearing the personal recruiting stories from past players. Can you talk about your recruitment to Temple and why you picked Temple? Dustin, we'll start with you and then go over to Mardy on this one.
How I got to Temple was I played against Harrisburg High School, that's where Quincy Wiley went to school. And, obviously Quincy went to Temple. So we played against Harrisburg in the district championship, and I had a really, really good game that game. And they're the one who got the tape to Temple. So that's how to probably say like April of my senior year or something like that. So once I came down there for the visit, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but when I came in with my mom and my dad, and talking to Coach Chaney, like the first 5 minutes, he was like, "How you like school? What do you think?" I was used to watching Temple on TV, and it was, a local team for me. Paperwork signed, and we'll be ready for you to come in next year. So I just kind of looked at my mom, and they looked at me like, "Is this what you want to do?" And I was like, I guess so. So, I signed the date, I signed everything, and it was like, I didn't have any, and I don't want to say I didn't have any intentions on signing, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But he kind of just, I don't want to say forced me, but it was just like, okay, well, come on. And I didn't want to tell him no. You know what I mean? So, that's how it happened for me. So
that's some charisma right there.
Yeah.
Someone saying you don't want to tell him no. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell him no. So. But that's how I got there. So,
Mardy, we were just talking about this a couple months ago. You were almost the greatest recruited walk-on in the history of the program, and it's the late Michael Blackshear, you're one of your former teammates who unfortunately passed away several years ago. They were recruiting him, and he sat out as a non-qualifier. That cleared the way for you to get the scholarship. But you've told the story before, but for those people who haven't heard it before, can you tell us how Temple started recruiting you and how you ended up there?
Yeah, it was just like, sometimes it's just luck, man. Like a lot of times you put the hard work in and just hopefully something lucky happens, and that's what it was. They were recruiting Michael Black. You said Michael Blackshear, and Coach had just played NC State. They were in NC State and they lost to NC State. So they flew back to Philly that night, and we happened to be playing Germantown Academy down in McGonigal. And Coach gets off the flight and he heads straight down there to check out Blackshear. And I just happened to have one of my best games ever. From then he called and he was like, we don't have a scholarship, but we want you to come there. And then he came to one more game against Martin Luther King. I played well that game. And I was like, at that point, I was already coming to every Temple game the year before, watching every Temple game. I was a big Lynn Greer fan. So me watching Lynn Greer and seeing what he was doing against Duke and Wisconsin, putting up 47, like it was just like, I'm like, so when they said it, I'm like, I didn't have a lot of recruitment letters anyway. I'm like, I don't mind going to walk on. That's better than anything else. So it just was unfortunate. Blackshear didn't qualify, and I happened to get the scholarship, and then the rest was kind of history. But it was just like, to me, it's a story. It's just continue to work and a little bit of luck happening for you.
His second question is, and you guys get this all the time, tell me your best John Chaney story. Marty, we'll start with you, and then Dustin will go to you.
Best John Chaney story. Moves a million of them. No, you got one already in hand, because I gotta think a little bit. You got one yet?
When people ask me that question, it's hard. It's always hard for me to answer. It's very, very hard for me to answer, but because there's so many. Well, I'll tell you this. Well, one of the stories was when Kobe and Shaq played on Christmas for the first time, and he just wanted us to, like, it was Christmas Day. We want to be home with our families, but we had to practice, and he just wanted us at the gym with him to watch the game. And I was mad, to be honest, because I'm in Lancaster, and I was never able to. For 3 years, I couldn't come home for Christmas because, like, our practice schedule, we was in the gym 5-6 hours, and then with the training didn't align with the timing, then we had to be back. But I look at it now, like, we were his family, so as much as we wanted to be away from him, he wanted to be close to us as his players. You know what I mean? So that was one of the stories that I have. Just I remember us having to go to watch the game on Christmas Day. Like, come on, coach! Like, can we relax and chill, be away?
Yeah, it's. I don't have one particular one. I can't think of one right now, but like I said, a lot of his stories, a lot of things he said, we probably can't repeat on this podcast because it was just so crazy. But that was just coach, man. He had no filter, and he would just tell it how it was, and whether you liked it or not. So I have a weird sense of humor in some of my stories. So the things that I felt funny and were crazy to me, like I said, I probably can't repeat those because there was some stories that probably people will look at like, wow, I can't believe you said that. Like, I just know offhand one that was funny to me, where we're in film, and like I said, it's not a funny story, but my sense of humor is a little different. And he gave Wilbur a scholarship. Like, so Wilbur's a walk-on all them years, and he gave him a scholarship, and Wilbur's on scholarship the whole year. But instead of end of the year having a conversation with Wilbur saying we needed the scholarship back, or we got a player, we're in a meeting and we having film, and he's cussing everybody out about everything. But he goes to Wilbur and said, "And with you, man," he said, "God give it, and God take it. I need that scholarship back." And I just couldn't believe he would say that to him. But that was just some of the things he would say. Like, and he said to everybody, like I told you the story before. He told me he made me. Like, it's times he told Mark he's stupid. Like, it's a certain stories that I felt was funny, but them the ones that stick to me more than anything because they just were funny to me. And so we look back at them, we were all sensitive in those moments, but when I look at them, I laugh now. Probably
that's how Wilbur Allen found out he was only getting a scholarship for 1 year.
Yeah, he felt that's how he wasn't going to be on scholarship the next year.
Oh,
like he didn't sit him down and tell him. That's how he told him. And I'm just like, coach doesn't care. Like, he's say anything. Coach doesn't care.
The third question for you guys is, what are your thoughts on Aaron McKee as a head coach and where the program is currently?
For me, I like that he's the coach. Obviously a Philly guy, Simon Gratz, Temple, Sixers. So he knows that, that's where he's from. And I like the fact that he has Chris Clark on the staff, who's a player that played with me and Mardy. He's also from Philly, and I just like what they're doing with the program. I think they're going to definitely get better. Keep bringing in some good recruits, and I know it's a process. When I think this was the second or third year, I believe.
Just finished the second year, yeah.
Just finished the second year, so it's still new. And then this time, the COVID time, I know that made things a little bit more difficult. So I think, in the next, let's say two years, everything will pick up. I think those guys they're doing a great job, and I think they'll be doing even a better job as they get, used to what they're actually doing. I know it's his first time being a head coach, so that's a major change because he's always been the assistant coach. So to change into a head coach and to follow in Coach Chaney and Coach Dunphy's footsteps. Those guys are legendary coaches at that program. Obviously, Coach Dunphy at Penn. But, you know, just think the longer that they're at it, they're going to get better at what they're doing.
Mardy, is it a cool thing for you? I don't know how much you being a Gratz guy, I would imagine that Bill Ellerby talked about Aaron all the time. I don't know how often he came by the gym, but what are your thoughts on Aaron as a head coach after knowing about him growing up in Gratz?
Yeah, not even just Simon Gratz. We played for the same AU coach, John Arnett.
Right.
So John Arnett was like a father to me. He was like a father to Aaron. So we already had that connect. We had that connection too. So me growing up, man, I mean, I idolized Aaron. You know, I looked at him as like the stature I was trying to reach, man. Like, I said it before. I think maybe in an article or an interview or something where, you know, Aaron is still a guy. I don't know. I'm a grown man, but I'm still kind of nervous around him because he's a guy I always idolized. You know, he always was professional on and off the court. He handled his business. So that when he was hired, you know, I loved it. You know, I loved the move, and because I know so much he taught me. Coming up from the days when he played the Sixers, and he would come down and play ball with us, play pickup with us, and the times I ran across him in with my AU with John Arnett, and he would give me advice and tell me things. He actually didn't like my game at first, that I played too cool. So I felt like myself, I was always trying to prove to him something. Like, so every time I seen Aaron up the Sixers workouts or somewhere, I was trying to prove that I, you know, play harder. But just to see him at a job, I was just happy, man. I was excited, especially to see Temple guys back in the building. And you know, for me, I didn't play for Dunphy, and I had nothing against Dunphy, but it was for me. I just love that Temple guys were back in the building. I felt comfortable to come back around, and, you know, and be well. Not saying Dunphy didn't welcome me, but I just felt comfortable being Temple guys back. But like Dustin said, I just think, you know, they keep at it, keep learning, keep working, keep getting recruits. You know, and the program is definitely heading in the right direction.
Guys, thanks so much for doing this. This was fun. I hope you guys really have a wonderful week. Congratulations again on getting your degrees. Hope you guys get to spend some time together and hang out. And hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. Really appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, so a big thank you to Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbury for spending some time with us today on The Scoop. Guys, what did you enjoy from that interview?
I might have the same type of weird humor that Mardy Collins has, because I thought the Wilbur Allen story was funny. Though once you take a step back, that's like probably at the time, like top 5 worst moment of Wilbur Allen's life. Like, oh, by the way, I'm taking away this scholarship from you. But like Mardy Collins just remembers it fondly as like a story of his college coach 15, 16, 17 years later.
Yeah, you could see, I mean, obviously we record on Zoom with these guys in this COVID era, and you guys we don't produce the video of it, but Mardy just was grinning from ear to ear when he said, "Oh, I've got this weird sense of humor," and he lit up with that story. But like you said, yeah,
probably like a traumatic moment. Like,
I guess like looking back at it now, you can kind of laugh about it, but oh my God, can you imagine being in that room?
Oh yeah. Like, do you ever just have like flashbacks to your life when you think about something cringy you did like 20 years ago and you're like, holy crap, like why did I do this? Like, it's probably like Wilbur Allen. It's just like, oh my God, that's a terrible moment. And it probably just like sneaks into his brain 10 to 15 times a year. Just like, oh God.
And Wilbur's in coaching now, right? He was on the Ole Miss staff. Now he's the director of basketball administration at UAB. So he's gone on to coach, and he's from I think, did he go to Irmo High School? Is he at the high school where I should look this up beforehand? I want to say he played at the high school where Marty's kids are now. I should have fact checked that before I said it, but yeah, I love that story. I thought it was hilarious. Sam, what about you?
Obviously, well, Dustin said some great things, but I mean, Mardy, I think, him saying that he sometimes gets nervous around Aaron McKee, even now, just because he always feel like he had to prove something to him. I thought that was pretty great. I mean, how else would we have known that Aaron McKee didn't exactly like Mardy Collins's game back then? So, and I mean, they both had nothing but great things to say about Aaron. And, I think fans like to get on him, but I mean, to have former players of the program speak that highly of him and guys that know him very well, I think that's encouraging. But yeah, no, that story of him getting nervous around somebody that you wouldn't think he'd get nervous around.
I thought the Mardy talking about how Madden imitates Marcus Camby's shot or used to, and then Kyle asking Marty, was there a rule in the house, or did he know he wasn't allowed to imitate a UMass player? Because that was, I don't know, but by the time Marty was playing at Temple, the Temple UMass rivalry was not what it was in the mid to late 90s when Marcus was still the best college player I saw live with my own eyes. He was insane. Seeing him go up against Mark Jackson when they squared off at McGonigal. I think might have been Mark's sophomore year, I think. But yeah, I enjoyed that story. But again, it's always cool to talk to those guys. And again, we've talked to them both this year under sadder circumstances with John Chaney's passing. But again, a really cool thing to hear that they're coming back and earning their degrees and doing it at the same time. So again, big congratulations to them and a big thank you to them for spending time with us today. And again, we got some of your mailbag questions in there, talking to those guys. We'll visit some football news here. Obviously, Temple did not have anybody drafted in last week's draft, but they did have 2 guys sign, as you know by now, as undrafted rookie free agents. Brandon Mack signed with the Broncos and Dan Archibong signed with the Bears. Hoping to get those guys pretty soon for interviews. In this COVID season in 2020, Brandon Mack had 26 catches for 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. Of course, the season before that, he really broke out, had 59 catches for 904 yards and 7 touchdowns. Dan Archibong this past season, 22 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, had 1.5 sacks and a career high 27 tackles in 2019. Guys, is this what we expected? I mean, either one of you thinking that they might have had a shot to get drafted in the 6th or 7th round, or are you guys not surprised to see him as undrafted free agents?
I mean, I'm not a draft expert, but it's kind of what I expected. That being said, I mean, once you get to the 7th round, it's just people throwing darts. There's no difference between a 7th round pick and an undrafted free agent. It's just, hey, I like this guy and I want to make sure that we get him or anything like that. So I thought there was always a chance that somebody became enamored with Brandon Mack's size or his ability to play quarterback in a pinch, or they looked at Dan Archibong being a 4-year guy. There was always the chance, but no, if I was a betting man, I would have said I didn't expect either of them to get drafted.
Yeah, I would agree with Kyle. I wasn't surprised either. I think we both predicted that they'd be on not high priority, but priority on undrafted free agents, the guys that would be signed directly after the draft. The only thing that I kind of thought is maybe we'd hear Dan Archibong's name called in the 7th round, just because, I'm somebody who probably pays more attention to the draft that I probably should. That the interior defensive line class is pretty weak this year, so maybe that would have helped him a little bit, just being a 4-year veteran, some guy who's produced, at a Division I program. So, but overall, I don't think we're surprised. They're interesting landing spots. I don't think if you put a gun to either one of our hands, we would have predicted those teams. But hopefully that they'll be able to show what they're capable of once they get to camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least with Mack, I mean, with his size, I think Denver makes a little sense. They have some smaller wide receivers there with KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton. But yeah, I always kind of go back to what Matt Rule said a couple of years ago. He said every scout that comes through here, they never, or maybe it was Ed Foley actually, they never ask me about stats. You're never asking how many catches does this guy have, blah blah. But it has to factor in a little bit with the fact that Brandon Mack had a massive drop off from his junior or senior year for a number of reasons, including having 15 different quarterbacks and COVID and blah blah. But he wasn't
being one of them.
Yeah, he wasn't as productive as he was during his junior year. So I wonder if that. Stats get you on people's radar more is what I'll say. And neither of them had great stats in their senior year.
Well, not to get on Brandon's case here, because I think it'd be unfair to make assumptions. But he was a player who got very fresh. I mean, if anybody showed any emotion this year, it was him. So I think he was a player who definitely got hurt a lot by what happened with this team, especially the quarterback position. Because I think there was constant times where he was just visibly frustrated that the ball wasn't getting to him, or was being thrown well enough to him, or he wasn't getting the ball, frankly. And, that's not his fault, but I think if there's one, I mean, if you can just point out that there's one player that got hurt, it's definitely him.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, it's probably worth debating and swishing this around a little bit, and it's certainly been a topic that fans are discussing. Mike Jensen wrote a column about it in the Inquirer. And, of course, we're talking about Quincy Roche and Kenny Yeboah, 2 guys who played at Temple before and transferred out. Quincy Roche, of course, transferred down to Miami. Kenny Yeboah down to Ole Miss. Initially, he decided to transfer to Baylor, and then he left Baylor when Matt Rule and his whole staff, of course, well, part of his Baylor staff went to the Carolina Panthers. So the question that people are again floating around and debating is, were Kenny Yeboah and Quincy Roche better off staying at Temple, or did they make the smart decision by transferring out? I know that both of these guys, and again, I haven't talked to Kenny since he transferred. I've had the chance to catch up with Quincy a couple of times. I think both of them went about it in a little bit different ways. I think Kenny was kind of itching to get out, felt he was underutilized, and he's entitled to that opinion, and was kind of gassed up to get out of there. Quincy, I know it was a little bit of a tougher decision for him. And I mean, Quincy's numbers down at Miami were not bad this year. They weren't terrible in terms of TFLs. Kenny put up some solid numbers, Ole Miss, but again, Kenny ends up with the New York Jets as an undrafted rookie free agent, and Roche goes to the Steelers in the 6th round. Again, it was a weird year in terms of evaluations, but where do you guys fall on this? Do you think this is much ado about nothing? Do you think they should have stayed at Temple? Again, part of me hedges on that question because, again, I think Kenny just wanted to leave and get out. Whereas, like I said, Quincy thought about it a little bit more. But if we want to debate this just to have some fun, do you think they would have been better off staying?
I mean, I think when you look at Kenny's shoes, obviously he wouldn't have been better off staying. I mean, yeah, he was still an undrafted free agent, but look what he was able to do in a passing offense with Lane Kiffin. That's what he kind of needed to be. Mm-hmm. I think Temple wanted him to be more of a block, like not a blocker first and then a pass catcher second. And I think he would rather have been the other, just because he was a converted receiver and he kind of played as like a more receiving tight end at Ole Miss. So I think for Kenny, you look at it like he wanted to get out of there. It wasn't a matter of like, would he have been an NFL draft prospect at Temple? He could have been, but I think, he definitely wouldn't have had this level of production. And you could sit here and say, well, would he be in the same spot? Probably not. So he could have been somebody who brings in a camp, but he's not somebody who's getting X amount of guaranteed money from the New York Jets. That's for sure. So with Quincy, I've kind of been on the fence of this, is like, hey, these guys made what they thought was the best decision for themselves. Right. But you also have to look at it. It's a COVID year where the draft was just like a crapshoot rounds 5 through 7, because there's just so much information you don't have. Quincy should have been somebody who was taken on maybe late day 2 or early day 3. I was very surprised he was still on the board come the 6th round, because he was productive at Miami. And maybe people look at, okay, is it because he's opposite of, maybe, scouts look at it and, okay, well, he was the opposite of a first round edge rusher. So of course he's going to have like that. But I think sometimes there's a lot of overthinking in that regard with just players in the production. I think Quincy made the best decision he probably could have made. Do we know, like, if he comes to Temple, like he's obviously like Temple this season, he wasn't replicating what he did the year before. Maybe he would have been a dominant force, but the defense was on the field for primarily like a lot of the game. So, and it's hard I think it's hard to Monday morning quarterback this, and I don't want to be like waffle each side here, but for me, I don't know. I think they made what they thought was the best decision at the time, and you couldn't have foreseen all of these things coming with COVID and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's just like, you know what? I don't know. I feel like it's hard to kick them all down. Like, you could say what you want about where they at with the program and leaving the program. And obviously Kenny has said things that probably rub fans the wrong way. And I think Quincy went about it better, but I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and say, hey, did they make the right decision? Because we just don't know in a normal season, like, would it have been the right decision, So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of multifaceted. I think if you're asking me from strictly a draft perspective, would they have gotten drafted higher if they had stayed at Temple? I agree that Kenny Yeboah was not going to get drafted the way he was being used at Temple, and he at least put himself in that conversation at Ole Miss and then signed a pretty lucrative undrafted free agent deal. So, yep, good decision, Kenny. Quincy, yeah, I think honestly, if you want to revisionist history of this or Monday morning quarterback, Quincy should have declared after last year. Is what it really should have come down to. Yeah. He won American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. His stock was at an all-time high. I get why he did it. And in his mind, he's probably envisioning, I'm going to go down to Miami. Rousseau hadn't opted out yet. We didn't really know what COVID was yet. He thought, I'm going to start upside of him. They're bringing this guy from UCLA. I'm going to get 13 sacks. I'm going to be a first-team all-ACC guy, and I'll be a first- or second-round pick. And I guess that
to go to Miami as a graduate student and reunite with his strength and conditioning coach, right?
Yeah, that was fine. I mean, he had options. We've been told, Miami, North Carolina wanted him. Mac Brown didn't have a scholarship for
Virginia
him.
Tech.
Virginia Tech liked him. Texas liked him. He had his options.
Certain New Jersey Big Ten schools kept telling people they were in on him when they weren't. There was a bunch of stuff.
Which school that could be.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, I get why he did it. I probably would have just declared after the year when my draft stock was the highest. I think what really comes down to is if you're viewing it from a draft perspective, that's what I think. If you're viewing it from their productivity as a professional, like, did this hurt their NFL careers or make their NFL careers better? I think Kenny Yeboah is going to get a shot that he might not have gotten. I'm going to think that Quincy, there's probably more questions about him now than there were coming out of after his junior year at Temple. Just because, I mean, he's played against some bigger teams now. And even with a first round pick on the other side of the line, he wasn't able to replicate those sacks. He did have a fair amount of tackles for loss. There was talk coming into the season that maybe he had enough athletic ability to kind of play in like a 3-4 as like a linebacker. I don't know about that anymore, like in the ACC. So I wonder from a career perspective what that changes. I mean, end of the day, he got drafted. He's an NFL player. He has a chance to prove everybody wrong. But I think everything being equal, taking away from the fact, yeah, he goes down to Miami for a year. He doesn't even get to enjoy Miami. Everybody's locked up at home. Like,
just a weird time.
Well, no, I'm not going to say.
Yeah, I mean, with Florida, you never know.
Yeah. And again, I think, you know, if you know Quincy, again, he's a pretty cool kid, great to talk to, but you know, it sounds so cliche when you talk about Temple recruits, but it is true. A lot of these guys do play with a chip on their shoulder because they were under recruited. For both Quincy and Kenny, Temple was their only FBS offer, right? I think Kenny had just FCS.
Yeah, I think Quincy had Navy or something. Maybe not. Quincy had App State.
Okay. So
in Toledo. So so Temple was his biggest offer.
I'll be interested to see how you know the Steelers defensive coordinator Keith Butler uses him. Obviously, they feel they have a way to use him if they took the time to draft him. But yeah, it's such an interesting time for those guys to be entering the NFL because Kyle, you just talked about this. Is Quincy kind of a tweener? Yeah. Did people look at him and say, okay, you had 4.5 sacks, you know, playing opposite another future pro. Should you have more sacks? I think that where people always fall in this debate, and again, who's to say who's right and wrong? It's not like I studied this whole draft class or anything close to it, but some people say, okay, if, like Kyle said, if you declared after your junior season, you go out on a high note and you don't give people the ammo, whether it is fair or unfair to say you went down to the ACC and your numbers dipped a little bit. Did you kind of get exposed a little bit? I'm not saying that he did. I like him. I think he's a great guy and I'm rooting for him, but it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to swirl around and debate. Who thought we would have been debating this
just kind of flesh out that scenario. Imagine if the same thing had happened that did happen. He went to the Senior Bowl. He had a really good Senior Bowl. Right. Like he had a good week of practices. He played well in the game. If that happened a month and a half after you just won AAC Defensive Player of the Year, maybe you are finding your way into a second round or first round thing. Yeah. No, I mean, Jason Owe got drafted with 0 sacks. So who the hell knows? Yeah. So like the draft is a crapshoot, but.
And again,
it's the Costanza thing. You leave on a high note.
Yes. It's not like I've studied this. I don't know there are no medical issues that I'm aware of with Quincy. No. And again, unless he has become a completely different person over the last,
it's gonna work. Yeah.
No character issues with Q whatsoever. So, but yeah, interesting thing to debate. Obviously, you know, wish both guys well. And
there was one thing that Todd McShay said that I paraphrased and tweeted. I mean, this guy just about Quincy. He's like, this is just a guy who knows how to get to the football. Guys get after the quarterback in college. It tends to translate. So maybe people get caught up too much in the sacks because, I mean, you know, how many pressures is he getting? I mean, I remember Pro Football Focus tweeted out something like he led the FBS in like pressures or hurries or something like that. Like that's, I don't know. I feel like
I mean, you could argue that
it was overthought. It just seems like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Jalen Phillips had his best career, one, because he got healthy, but two, because he's playing opposite Quincy Roche. Like, I get it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to be rooting for Quincy Roche. I'm sure, unless, like you said, unless something's changed in the last 12 months, once he gets to Pittsburgh, he's going to work. He's going to put the effort in. So, a lot of times in the NFL, like landing in a good spot is better than where you get drafted in the draft. Like you landed in a good spot in Pittsburgh. So like Pittsburgh has proven, just from a Temple perspective, Pittsburgh has proven in the past with Tyler Matakevich that like it doesn't matter where you got drafted. you have opportunity here. Like Tyler turned that into a good second contract with the Bills. Like you're going to have a shot, Quincy.
This is going to be a bad example here, and you're going to laugh at me, but look at Robbie Anderson. I mean, the Jets, they didn't really have like a strong receiver, so he come in and have the opportunity. Just like with Kenny, he could probably have the opportunity to come in and probably fight to be that number 2, 3 tight end, just because they don't have in that room. And maybe the same goes for Archibald. And I don't really know what the Bears interior defensive line room looks like, so I can't read you the Bears depth chart off the back of my hand.
Do you ever do something like when you're trying to make a point and you use somebody as an example and then you realize as soon as you use it, you're like, oh shit, like, was that right? I realized that when I was talking about Brandon Mack. I was like, yeah, Denver's got smaller wide receivers. I was like, I know KJ Hamler's tiny, KJ Hamler. And I was like, Cortland Sutton. And I go, Cortland Sutton. I was like, Cortland Sutton's 6'4". Like, he's not tiny. But for some reason, I was like,
Jerry Judy's 6'1", and then, yeah.
But like in my mind, I was like, I know they have short receivers. I know Cortland Sutton is a receiver on their team. Therefore, he is short. No.
So right.
Maybe when they trade Aaron Rodgers, trade for Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to give up Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant. So maybe
Noah Fant.
Maybe Brandon Mack can work his way in there.
Man won me a couple fantasy games last year. But
we don't talk about your
Fant or Aaron Rodgers
fantasy team on this podcast. Yeah, exactly.
He cares about your fantasy team, right, Kyle?
Exactly.
All right. So in his final spring football media availability, Rod Carey did say very clearly that they would he and his staff would continue to look at the transfer portal. And sure enough, Temple did extend another offer. And I think Rod had said but like maybe both lines, but best player available. And it looks like they threw an offer out there to someone else.
It did. I think we've kind of been talking about it for a couple of weeks. I think basically what Rod said, ideally you want to add somebody on the defensive line, you want to add somebody on the offensive line, and you kind of just plug in. But the offer that went out today, which kind of saw in the tea leaves and it finally got pulled today, was Isaiah Helms, who was a transfer from Western Carolina. Temple's had some success in the past with people that are associated with Western Carolina, including 2 of their 4 last head coaches. I was going to say 3, but Manny Diaz was here. And Fran Brown. Fran Brown played Western Carolina. They've had a lot of success with their program. So Isaiah Helms, an interior offensive lineman. He played center there the last few years, but he could play guard as well. He's 325. He was an FCS freshman All-American, 3rd team in 2019, All-Conference in 2020. What's interesting is this isn't a grad transfer situation. And granted, everybody's eligible now right away, so it doesn't matter. But like, he's not just a 1-year guy. This is a guy that has 3 years of eligibility left. So I think if you're Temple, what you're trying to convince this guy that it's going to have some options, what you're trying to convince him of is, hey, look, we might not have a starting spot for you this year. I mean, if you're better than some of our players, like by all means, yeah, you can start. But like, there's a chance that Temple's entire offensive line is gone next year. Like right now, you're looking at Joe Hooper, CJ Perez, and Michael Neese are gone regardless. Like this is their last year of eligibility. But then even the 2 other projected starters, and Adam Klein and Isaac Moore, are going to be into their 4th year in the program. They're 4th year academics. They could decide to leave, or they could just move on from football. Like there's plenty of options. So I think Temple's kind of looking at the depth chart here, realizing, yes, we like Wisdom Corshi. Yes, we're starting to like Jeremiah Donaldson, like guys are pushing Bryce Tillman, Sam Davis, but there might be a need to fill in kind of that gap between the current offensive line and the next generation, which, not to take too many shots, but if you look at who was kind of responsible for recruiting that gap in between the current offensive lineman and the next generation, there was a position group that really wasn't focused on all that much during that time. So Isaiah Helms is definitely an option out there right now. He's starting to get some FBS traction, but not necessarily. There's not any offers that he's gotten yet that you go, okay, Temple can't beat out that guy. So that's definitely something to watch out for. He's from Lenoir, North Carolina, which is where Jarman was from. Aaron Jarman.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I believe so. So
is the North Carolina ambassador on this podcast.
Before he said, yeah, Sam put his hand up like, I don't know, man. Like I got a lot of tables. Like, yeah.
We always go with that movie reference.
I'm not going to name names here, but I met with my advisor at the end of the year, and she asked me yesterday if Charlotte was in the Boondocks. So we have that.
Massive city. Massive.
So we have a football mailbag question here is from D Blaze 75 from the football board. question is, how hard do you think Temple, and again, this goes back to transfer portal stuff, how hard do you think Temple is pursuing defensive tackles, Keontae Shad, Eddie Wilson, and Jaron Handy? Any other the Owls might be taking a hard look at on the defensive line, chances of landing any?
I think the answer to the first part is how hard are they pursuing them? Fairly hard. Like I think Temple needs to bring in at least one, if not two, like playable defensive tackles. Not like guys that are necessarily coming in as prospects. Like with the Zach Gill injury of he might not be available this season, or if so, maybe halfway through, like they need to bring in more defensive tackles.
Both Keontae guys are hurt, right?
Yeah. I mean, Lance Toure doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue.
Yeah. It just seemed like they were being cautious with him.
Right.
What happened with Zach? I mean, do you really want to lose both of your transfer interior defensive linemen? Probably not.
Right. Eddie Wilson's an interesting guy. He was productive at Buffalo. It seems like all of Buffalo is leaving now that Lance Leopold's going to Kansas because the transfer portal never sleeps.
By the way, I thought that was just news that got like swept under the rug. Like that was announced and nobody, I didn't see anybody talk about that.
I mean, he wins. Like Lance Leopold wins. He's not gonna. Nobody in Kansas. Well, first of all, let's call a spade here. Nobody gives a crap about Kansas football, even in Kansas. But like, that's not going to be the type of hire that like really gets a splash, which is good because I mean their last hire got a splash with Les Miles, and that didn't turn out great.
He got fired. You got the AD fired.
Right. So like, you don't have to win the press conference. You have to win games, and Lance Leopold wins games everywhere he goes. Back to the actual question. Handy from Auburn. I don't see that happening. I do have some names that I kind of have my eyes focused on. I would say Keontae Shad I'm like kind of focused on, but who knows? Tyrese Woods from Buffalo was originally a Michigan commit. They pulled his offer like right before signing day. He ends up floundering, finds his way down to Buffalo. He's been productive when he's been healthy. He only played in 3 games last year. One of them was the MAC championship game where he had 2 sacks. He had 3 tackles for a loss and 2 sacks for the season. 6'2", 295, probably a guy that can plug in and give you meaningful snaps right away. Jeffrey Pooler from West Virginia is actually more like an edge. He's only like 250, 260, but I'm wondering if they still might roll the dice on somebody like him just because another body to throw at it. Because I think after you got Will Rogers, you got Manny Walker, and you got Evan Boozer, but I think they still kind of like those. Leighton Jordan become that, does Trayvon King become that, but I think they really kind of need to flesh out like a 4th defensive end. So it would surprise me if they rolled the dice on a grad transfer like him.
Well, for me, I would imagine maybe what if they get a D tackle and then somebody who could probably be like a tweener.
Right. And honestly, I still think I think you saw it a little bit in the East Carolina game, unless my memory is just completely crap. I think push comes to shove. If they really needed Evan Boozer to kind of shift in a little bit, he can shift in a little bit. Like he's playing that like bully defensive end where he's a big boy that just likes to push guys around. But like he could give them some snaps if need be in there. I don't think they want to. I think they like him in that big end role, but there's always the opportunity. But I kind of just wanted to put in perspective like how ridiculous recruiting defensive tackles is. Like we always talk about like in basketball, like if you're 6'10" and you're just uncommitted in like March, you're going to get some offers that you probably shouldn't get. Defensive tackles are very similar, at least this recruiting cycle, because everybody needs defensive tackles this year. To give an example, one of the names I was going to mention is Tony Fair. He's a transfer from UAB, from Alabama, Birmingham. He was originally on my list. He was a guy that went to Indiana State, then went JUCO, then went to UAB. So FCS, JUCO, Conference USA, has 1 year left or 2 years left or whatever it might be. Thought he might Temple start recruiting him, thought there was a chance to go to the American level. In the span of 10 minutes this afternoon, he announced Michigan offers, Indiana offers, Ole Miss, Purdue. It just blows up. A guy that was like pretty good at a Conference USA level is going to be able to choose wherever the hell he wants to go in college football. So I wouldn't get too focused necessarily on the names yet, because who knows? All it takes is one big school offering these kids, and then all of a sudden 15 others will follow pursuit. But yes, I think Temple is going to add defensive tackles.
Well, now it's probably pretty ripe now, right? Because everybody's pretty much done with spring ball, and now
they've got a month, right? June 1's the last. They have to inform their current school by June 1 that they are going to leave. Otherwise, they won't be immediately eligible.
And then as much as they can be, and hopefully we continue to be on the right track with COVID, whatever that means. But, most programs, I would imagine, had the chance to have a lot more of a normal spring season, spring practice, and probably the coaches and the coaching staff out there are acutely aware of what they need. And, for the players' sake, you hope that they're acutely aware of where they stand with their coaching staff. Some guys out there could have had the conversation with their coach where they say, hey, if you want to play X number of snaps this season, great. It just might not be here. So now it's really probably going to get ramped up and cause, the type of situation that you're referring to, Kyle.
Yeah. And in that similar vein, it's kind of interesting that really hasn't happened at Temple yet. This time it might be because, hey, you've already lost so many people earlier, but like you saw some walk-ons like Maddie Vitale transferred out, Mike Mitchell transferred out. I think Max Cavalucci left the team. So like walk-ons, but like you haven't seen some of those like fringe scholarship guys get the talk yet or decide that they're better off elsewhere. So I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing, but it's a thing.
Yeah. So, well, a big thank you to Mardy Collins and Dustin Salisbury for joining us this week. A big thank you to all of you for listening to The Scoop once more this week. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I know it's the cliche thing to say, but wherever you access your podcasts, and subscribe, rate, and review if you can. The more reviews and ratings we get, the more it elevates Temple Sports Talk out there on in the podcast stratosphere. So big thank you to all of you again for joining us this week. And big thank you to Sam Newman again, and congratulations to him. Again, we're not saying goodbye to him just yet. And like we said, he's always going to be part of the Owl Scoop family. And we'll talk to everybody soon.